Hello and welcome to another video. This is going to be kind of like an off-the-cuff kind of look at my thoughts into Suicide Squad, which I went to see yesterday. Overall, I thought it was decent enough. It wasn't a brilliant film by any stretch of the imagination, but it was alright. Certainly better than Batman vs Superman was. I do have like some quibbles with it, which I'm going to go into. But overall, I had a fun time, and I'd recommend going to see it if you're into DC films or just like superhero films in general. Um, so where to start? The film is essentially about a government operative called Amanda Waller. She's putting together a task force of bad guys to kind of like counter threats, which the Justice League can't. The Justice League aren't a thing yet, but they can't counter or what have you. Um, the reasons why the other superheroes can't counter this stuff isn't really gone into, to be perfectly honest with you. But anyway, they're putting together this team, and you've got Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Killer Croc, and Slipknot. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking who? Slipknot. Which I'll get to him. There's a reason I'm saying that. So those are your kind of like five main guys, and I'm not missing anyone, have I? No, no. You've got those are your five main guys, and they're headed up by a guy called Rick Flag. He is like in charge of the unit. He's working with Amanda to kind of like keep these guys in line. Essentially, if they go out of line, then they've got these like mini bombs inserted into the back of the neck, and they can just be killed by Amanda Waller. She has an app for it on her phone, with like all of their faces kind of like arranged along, so she can just like press one and it'll blow them up. So yeah, essentially, um, Enchantress has kind of like gone rogue. Enchantress is like the main bad guy of the film, and she's kind of like um, escaped. Amanda Waller's got her heart in a case, which she uses to control her and like keep her under wraps and that, because she has the human form of June Moon. The Enchantress has kind of like possessed her, and she can like come out at will. And she escapes and finds her brother, who is kind of like imprisoned in a jar. She gets him out of the jar, and he possesses someone. And for some reason, he kind of like melds with a bunch of other people, and suddenly is like 10 foot tall. Don't know why, but that's what it is. So she is trying to build a machine of some kind. Now, the film doesn't explain what the machine she's building actually is. I mean, it has like firepower capabilities. It does do some like massively destructive stuff later on in the film, but the film never actually explains what the machine is ultimately for, because I'm sure it's not just to kind of like cause destruction. But anyway, that's like a minor point. Basically, they're sending Task Force X in to try and stop her, basically, because obviously at this point Superman's dead, and Batman is off doing something. I mean, Batman hasn't got any special powers anyway, but you'd have thought they could call him up, but apparently not. So so yeah, they assemble this team, and you've got these five main guys, plus Rick Flag, and Katana, who's kind of like on the side of Amanda, and she's also there trying to keep them in line. And the movie kind of like starts with Deadshot, and you get like a few minutes of his backstory and exposition, and then it moves on to Harley Quinn. You get a few minutes of backstory and exposition. They all get kind of like a stat card as well. You see the picture come up, and it talks about all the stats on the side of it, like a little bit of extra backstory. Then you've got Captain Boomerang, who gets a little bit less than the other two, but there's still kind of like a few bits there. And Killer Croc, you get a few bits for him, and he gets even less backstory, but he still gets his his stats card and a bit of an introduction. So they introduce those four, and then you see Amanda Waller in a briefing with a load of government and military guys, and you see 5 pictures up on the wall. Now you're thinking to yourself, the movie's only shown me 4 people in this task force. Who is this 5th people? This 5th person, sorry, and that 5th person is Slipknot, and all we see is his photo at this point. We've been introduced to the other 4, and just Slipknot's photo just on the wall there, but he's not mentioned at all. So we get to the point where Enchantress is kind of like broken free. Why she's suddenly chosen this particular time to break free? It looks like she could have done it at any time, but she does, and they assemble the task force. So they bring them all together in this one place, and those 4 guys are there, and all of a sudden the car pulls up, and this guy comes out, and it's Slipknot, and I think Rick Flag says, "That's Slipknot. He can shoot ropes out of his hand." All right, let's go. That is like the entire backstory and introduction that Slipknot gets. So immediately you're thinking to yourself, why have they introduced 4 of them but not bother giving him any story? And you kind of realize it's because they're just going to kill him off. Like they go into the mission, and like 5 minutes into the mission, Captain Boomerang says he's going to try and escape. He doesn't think that the bombs are kind of like real. He thinks they're just kind of like using the power of suggestion to keep them in line. And he kind of like convinces Slipknot to go with him. So Slipknot tries to escape. Amanda Waller then, Rick Flag, sorry, uses the app on his phone to kind of like blow him up. And that is the last we see of Slipknot. And it's kind of like it's rare to see a film that will just blatantly just have a character there just to kind of like prove a point, not bothering to introduce him whatsoever. It's clear that they didn't give a shit about him, and even before the mission started, just because of what they'd done before, I already knew that he would die like straight away, and he did. You could have had like a little bit of suspense there by giving him the same amount of backstory, at least the same that you've given to Captain Boomerang and Killer Croc. But they just didn't bother. I've completely forgotten Diablo as well. Diablo is also one of the guys. He also gets some backstory and a stat sheet and all that. I've got no idea why I forgot about him, but he's one of the guys. There are actually 6 members of Task Force X, and so not 5, 6 with Slipknot and Diablo. So yeah, that was kind of like my first real criticism about it. The story is kind of like a little bit slow and kind of confusing to start with, and it's only really in the last half an hour or so that it really ramps up when they get to the main fight with Enchantress and all of that stuff. You may have seen kind of like a lot of jokes in the trailer. It seems to me that those jokes were written as one-liners. It's like, we need something funny to put in here, and then they thought to themselves, right, we've written this scene, how can we get it in the film? Because all of those trailer jokes just seemed out of place. Well, not all of them, most of them. They just seemed out of place, and it just seems like they've just jammed them in purely because of criticism against Batman vs Superman being so kind of like dour throughout and not really having much in the way of jokes about it. So that was a shame to kind of like see their ham-fisted attempt at humor. Um, the only bit in the film that genuinely made me laugh was they're all sitting in a bar. Half of the military team have been killed because they've got a military team with them as well. Half of those have been killed, and everything is kind of like looking like hopeless. So they all go into a bar, and Rick Flag is kind of like he's lost hope as well. So they're having this big heartfelt discussion, and then he says, "Well, you're all free to go." And immediately, Captain Boomerang just stands up, walks out the door. Um, that is the only thing that kind of like made me laugh. Um, so that the other attempts of humor were just kind of like they're just trying too hard. They try and make Killer Croc the comedy character, um, in a way. All of the kind of like jokes that they try and do, most of them tend to come from him or about him, and Killer Croc I actually think is the weakest part of the film. His dialogue, for what it is, he only has like a few lines, but his dialogue is badly written. Um, it seems quite badly delivered. It just doesn't seem like a decent character at all. Just the way it's portrayed, the way it's been acted, it just seems really really silly for the most part, and it doesn't quite fit with the other characters, who at least have kind of like an element of realism about it. Every single thing that comes out of Killer Croc's mouth sounds like an actor reading some lines, and it just doesn't really gel for me at all, that character. Um, Obviously, kind of like as they're kind of like making their way to Enchantress and kind of like battling these soldiers that she's kind of like converted into her own soldiers. Like she's taken like a bunch of people in the city and she's just converted them into these soldiers with the weird pulsating pustule covered heads. I'm not entirely sure what that's all about, but um, as they kind of like making their way to Enchantress, fighting these guys simultaneously, you've got the Joker, who is kind of like trying to find Harley, because the Joker has kind of like turned up, and obviously, if you know anything about the backstory of like Harley and Joker, there's kind of like this really tight relationship. Harley's kind of like infatuated with the Joker. Um, it is very much like a two-way relationship in this. They are kind of like portrayed as this really strong relationship, even though it is kind of it definitely is like an abusive relationship. Um, but Harley doesn't seem to mind. Maybe because she's so damaged herself that she's kind of like infatuated with this guy that abuses her. I mean, not in kind of like a constant, massive kind of way, but he doesn't treat her brilliantly. But he is kind of like a psychopath, and he's trying to find her along the way, and he does eventually find her, and he tries to help her escape, and then the helicopter that he's in just gets blown up like a few minutes after. Um, so that's all we see of him for a while, and obviously Harley thinks he's dead, um, but we find out later that he's not. But Harley thinks he's dead, and he is literally like in the film in the present day for a few minutes at most. There's a couple of scenes with him earlier on, but they're pretty inconsequential. It's just serves to introduce the character, and you've got some backstory with him as well. Just showing his past with Harley and like a previous run-in with Batman, because Batman is in the film as well. Although only in flashback scenes. He's in some of Harley Quinn's flashback scenes, and he is in some of Deadshot's flashback scenes. Um, and essentially, the Joker, I don't think the Joker needed to be in the film. He doesn't really serve a purpose whatsoever. He is just kind of like in the background. He doesn't do a lot of any consequence. He is essentially just there to give Harley something else to talk about. And to provide some kind of like emotional character development for Harley. That is all he's in the film for. I mean, the depiction of the Joker was okay, I guess. It's certainly not my favorite depiction of the Joker, but I don't think it ever would have been. I do prefer kind of like the Jack Nicholson, especially, and to a slightly lesser extent Heath Ledger. I prefer those kind of like versions of the Joker. This version was okay. It's just another version. It 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 is what it is. Some people love him, some people hate him. But he was in the film to sell tickets. Let's just face it. He has no purpose in the film whatsoever. You could have taken him out of the film, and the film wouldn't have been any the better or worse for it whatsoever. So there's like no point for him being there whatsoever. All this hype that was built up around the character, and he is essentially just, like I say, he is only there to give Harley something to emotionally react to in a couple of scenes. But you know, it was kind of like a bit pointless. And there is one scene involving kind of like the Joker and Harley's relationship that actually kind of made me choke up. Now they do finally get to Enchantress, and after kind of like Diablo kills Enchantress's brother by turning into this big fiery demon kind of guy, and just like pummels him, and basically half of the team is underground planting a bomb underneath where Enchantress and her brother are, and all Diablo has to do is kind of like get her brother into this certain position, and the bomb is kind of like right underneath him. So Diablo does that, pummels him into the ground, essentially like uses all of his power on him. So he kind of like turns into this big fiery demon, but as he's punching him, he's kind of like being extinguished, turning back into like a normal human form. And then he shouts to them, kind of like set off the bomb. So they do, killing Diablo in the process as well. But the brother is killed as well. And Enchantress kind of like meets the team and shows them what they would like most desire. And it's kind of like different things for each character. But for Harley, it's showing her kind of like having a normal family life, and the Joker's there as well, but he's just kind of like normal Jared Leto, no makeup, essentially looking kind of like he does at the start of Fight Club before he gets beaten up. So that is kind of like her dream. At this point, she thinks that he's dead, and Enchantress kind of like says, if you join with me, you can have anything you want. And Harley goes up to her and she says, I lost my pudding, which is kind of like her pet name for Joker. And that just in the way that the line was delivered, that did make me choke up. That was like quite an emotional scene. Just the way that one line is kind of like delivered. I mean, Margot Robbie does a really, really good job with the character of Harley Quinn. Most of the guys do like a really, really good job. Like I said, aside from Killer Croc and Jared Leto, it's a strange depiction, but like I said, it's a perfectly serviceable depiction of the Joker. Um, so that was kind of like the only emotional part of the film for me. The emotional hook of having that relationship that Harley now thinks that the Joker's dead, and that is kind of like the whole like emotional crux of the film. Um, because it isn't otherwise a particularly emotional film. So that seems to me the only reason he was put in, just to kind of like sell tickets and to give Harley something to emotionally react to. Which is a shame because he is kind of like second build, and he's just not in it a lot at all. So yeah, that was a shame. But the fight scene itself, the end fight scene, and the scene where they destroy Enchantress's machine by Killer Croc like lobs C4 a bag of C4 into into her machine, and Deadshot shoots it and it explodes. Because the machine is kind of like doing a hell of a lot of damage. It's kind of like blowing shit up and just creating havoc, basically. Um, so that part of the film, that fight, the destruction of the machine, that is kind of like really really good. That is the best part of the film. The last half an hour or so, as they're building up to that, best part of the film, and they defeat Enchantress, and basically June is still alive. They kill off Enchantress, and June is fine. Um, she's like not possessed by her anymore, and then Amanda Waller shows up as well, and they're basically saying, we should be free now, and she's saying, no, back to the original agreement. You get some time taken off your sentence, and that's it. And that's where the film ends. So overall, I would probably give the film like a if I was going to rate it out of 10, I'll probably give the film like a 6 out of 10. But that last half an hour, um, just based on that bit, I would give it 7 out of 10 for that. Because that was like a really really good scene. Um, it's just a shame that the character development for characters that weren't Harley or Deadshot just wasn't really there at all. Um, Everyone else kind of like gets pushed to the sidelines. It is definitely the Harley and Deadshot show. Um, which I guess in a 2 hour film you can't really kind of like give everyone the spotlight, so they made a decision and they gave the spotlight to the two biggest actors in the film, Will Smith and Margot Robbie. So that's fine, I guess. It's just a shame that they couldn't have done something more with Slipknot, just so he didn't look like he was just being set up to be killed, which is exactly what he was. So yeah, that's what I thought about the film. Like I said, decent enough, 6 out of 10. Definitely better than Batman vs Superman was, and yeah, I'll probably pick it up on disc when it comes out and give it another watch, and maybe there'll be kind of like an extended version like there was with Batman vs Superman with a few more scenes, maybe giving Slipknot a little bit more of a backstory, maybe giving Joker more of a point to be in the film. Joker is actually in the Justice League film. Well, he's listed as one of the cast members, so I'm assuming he'll be there, even though it might even be in flashback. Well, I actually forgot like there is kind of like another scene at the end of the film where Harley's back in prison and Joker breaks her out. So just showing that like he is like still alive, still around. Um, so yeah, he is still around going forward, and him and Harley have kind of like broken out of prison, which is it's kind of like the status quo with Harley and Joker, just always breaking out and causing havoc, then getting arrested again, then breaking out, and that's just how it works. At least it's in the comics anyway. Um, so yeah, I don't really think there's much more I can say actually, and you can probably hear my voice going a little bit as well. So I'm going to leave it there. Again, if you're into DC, go see it. A lot of people have opinions have been mixed. You know, some people liked it, some people don't. You're not going to know until you actually see it. But yeah, definitely go and see it if you haven't. I mean, I'm not entirely sure why you're watching this video if you haven't seen it, because you know, like the title says, there is like major spoilers. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a fun couple hours. I've spent worse afternoons in the cinema before, definitely. So yeah. Think we should like wrap that up there. If you enjoyed this video, please click like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time.